Every single day, managers are making these huge, high-stakes decisions that can literally make or break a company. So how do they do it? How do they navigate those critical moments? Well, I'll tell you this, it's not magic, and it's definitely not guesswork. It's actually a science, and we're going to dive right in.
I mean, this is the question, right? It's what they talk about in every business school, in every boardroom. When the pressure is on and you've got to decide, do we launch this new product? Do we enter that new market? Do we dare change our pricing? Where do you even start?
Here's the secret. The best managers have a toolkit. It's grounded in this field called managerial economics. But don't let the name scare you. It's just a set of really practical, powerful techniques for turning these huge, complex business problems into clear, solvable questions. And today, we're going to build that toolkit together.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to stock our toolkit with 4 essential instruments. First up, a blueprint for modeling your business. Then, a level for finding that perfect sweet spot. After that, a crystal ball for predicting the future. And finally, a compass for navigating the fog when things get uncertain. Let's get started.
All right, tool number 1. This one is the most fundamental of all, the blueprint. Because look, before you can optimize anything, you've got to understand it. And that means creating a simplified model of your business world.
So, the building blocks of any model are pretty simple: variables and functions. Just think of a variable as anything that can change. Your price, how much you spend on ads, your production output. A function is just the rule that connects them. It's the engine that says, hey, if you change this variable, then that variable is going to change in a very specific way.
Now, sometimes that relationship is super straightforward, just like this. This is a linear function. It means for every single dollar you drop the price, maybe you sell exactly 10 more units. See? It's a direct, consistent, totally predictable relationship. Kind of nice when things are that easy to model.
But let's be real, the world is rarely that simple. A lot of the time, you get a U-shaped curve like this. This is a quadratic function. Think about your average costs. At first, right, as you produce more, your cost per unit goes down because you're getting more efficient. But after a certain point, they start to creep back up, maybe because of overtime pay or machines getting strained. This curve captures that perfect sweet spot or that minimum cost point beautifully.
And then you get something like this, which shows an even more complex reality. This is a cubic function with multiple twists and turns. This often happens with production. You add a few workers and boom, you get a big jump in output. But then you add a few more and you start seeing diminishing returns. Pretty soon, they're just getting in each other's way. This model captures that whole, nuanced story.
Okay, on to our second tool. Once you have a blueprint of your business, the next obvious question is, where's the best spot on that map? We're talking maximum profit, minimum cost, peak revenue, whatever your goal is. You need a tool to find that sweet spot.
And that tool is called marginalism. Now, I know it sounds a little academic, but it's an incredibly simple and powerful idea. All it means is focusing on the change from the very next step. What happens if we produce just one more unit? What's the extra revenue we get? What's the extra cost we incur? That's it. That's all marginal analysis is.
Just take a look at this profit curve. As we move from left to right, selling more and more units, our profits are going up, up, up. The marginal profit, the profit from each extra sale, is positive. But watch what happens as we get close to the peak. The curve starts to flatten out. And right at the very top, the extra profit from selling just one more unit is 0. That's your signal. That's the sweet spot.
So how do we find that peak without just, guessing? Well, math gives us 2 really clear signals. The first signal, which you see in that top row, is finding where the curve goes totally flat, where the slope, or that marginal value, is 0. But that could be the top of a hill or the bottom of a valley. The second signal confirms it's a peak by telling us, hey, the slope was positive, it just hit 0, and now it's starting to go down. That's how you know for sure you found the maximum.
Okay, so we know how to model our business, and we know how to find the best spot on that model. But where does the model itself even come from? Well, it comes from data. And our third tool, the crystal ball, is all about turning messy, real-world data into a predictive model.
This right here, this is reality. When you plot out your historical data, in this case total cost versus total output, you don't get some clean, perfect line. Nope, you get a scatter plot, a cloud of points. You can kind of see there's a relationship there, right? A general upward trend, but it's hidden inside all of that noise. So the big question for any manager looking at this is, how do you cut through all that noise? How do you take this chaos and distill it into a single reliable formula that you can actually use to make predictions?
The answer is a really cool technique called regression analysis. It's a statistical method that finds the one single line that best fits through that cloud of data. The analysis crunches all the numbers and spits out a beautiful, simple equation. For this data, it might be something like cost equals $87 plus $12 times the number of units you make. And just like that, the manager has a predictive tool. They can estimate that producing, say, 30 units will cost around $453, and that helps prevent costly mistakes. The chaos becomes clear.
All right, let's grab our final tool. Models and forecasts are fantastic, but they kind of assume the future is going to look a lot like the past. But what happens when you're facing something totally new? What happens when you're navigating the fog of the unknown? Well, you're going to need a compass. First things first, we have to get clear on the difference between risk and uncertainty. They sound similar, but they're worlds apart. Risk is when you know the possible outcomes, and you know the probability of each one. Think of a casino. They know the odds on every single roll of the dice. Uncertainty, that's when you don't even know the odds. You're launching a product so new, there's no data. You are in totally uncharted territory. And this quote just perfectly captures the challenge of uncertainty. There's a famous story about a fast food chain that did tons of research, and everyone said they wanted a healthier burger. So they launched it, and it was a spectacular failure. Why? Because what people say they want in a survey and what they actually do when they're hungry can be two totally different things. That gap right there, that is uncertainty.
So while you can't really predict pure uncertainty, you can manage risk. And one of the best ways to do that is with a decision tree. It's this brilliant visual tool that forces you to map out every choice, every possible outcome you can think of, and the potential payoff of each path. It turns a tangled web of possibilities into a clear map. It's a lot like planning your moves in a game of chess.
So there you have it, 4 really powerful tools for making smarter business decisions. But here's the most crucial point of all. They are just that, tools. They inform your judgment, they don't replace it. They provide the hard numbers, the quantitative backbone, but it's the manager's experience, their intuition, and their leadership that brings it all to life.
And that really leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Looking at your own work, the challenges you face, the decisions on your plate, which tool from this new toolkit would you reach for first? The blueprint, the level, the crystal ball, or the compass? The answer to that tells you a whole lot about where you should begin.